Just give me.
Becky.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we are in business now. I wanted to make sure that I have it recorded when I introduce my great friend, Joia. You know, I saw her post on LinkedIn and I fell in love with her image. She is such a magnetic personality. Like I just got drawn to her. Her posts were so phenomenal. And I reached out to her and I said, can we have a Zoom meeting? And honestly, my friends, uh, after reading about her profile and all the things she has done, I said, oh my God, Guinea, you were honored to be in the presence of somebody who is a thought leader. She is phenomenal. She was the first Black woman to be the technical director of CBC Evening News.
CBS Evening News.
And you know what? And beyond that, she is 14 TEDx talks she has helped people to write and bring those TEDx talks to the platform. And the fact of the matter, which I loved when I started talking to her, she's a woman who's down to earth. She started telling me that it was her father as a child who really started helping her shape to be a public speaker. It was her dad who was telling her how to pause, how to position herself. And I said, wow, what a lucky, lucky girl. And then her eyes started shining when she started talking about her grandson. And she says, Eniko. And there she goes. You can see her. And Eniko. And you know, I said, oh, really? Tell me about Eniko. And she says, his name means heart of lion and divine powers, was born in troubled times to bring joy to the world. My friends, that stole my heart. The kids are our future. Kids are where we can really bring and serve the whole humanity. So without further ado, my friends, give a welcome to our speaker, Joia Nuri, and pleasure. Floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm sort of blown away. You asked to meet, and I just said, I like your energy. I'd come meet with you and Judy, and it was wonderful. We had a great conversation. And I really want to thank you for inviting me to come and speak today and to tell a bit of my story. And I know my charge here is to talk about the obstacles that were in the way for me to get to where I am today. And those obstacles were really just one. And it's one big one. But to fill people in on as to who I am Joia Jefferson Nuri. I'm an executive leadership coach and a public speaking coach. And I run my own business. I've been in business 20 years now. And I primarily work with African-American women who are in the C-suite already. These women have moved up through schools and PhDs, and now they're sitting in the C-suite, and they are focused on a lot of things they don't need to be focused on. They're in their zone of excellence, but I help them get to their zone of genius. And I had a lot of help getting to my zone of genius. As Jenny said, first began with my parents, who told me I can be anything I want. I was born in the civil rights era, where that was a lofty dream for parents to have for their children, as people were dying in the streets and Dr. King was doing his thing to lead people. But my parents had no doubt about me, and I knew that as I was growing up. And my father, how he could teach me to do public speaking was because he was a classical singer. And my name is Joia for Joia Giovanni, who was one of the people he admired the most as he was coming up through classical music. And you can imagine there wasn't a lot of space for Black men who sang classical music in the 40s and the 50s, but he was undaunted. He did anything to keep the food on the table, but when he could sing, he would sing. So being able to project diction, let the people on the last row hear you, helped me understand that I had to be bigger. I'd be bigger than being a Black girl, or we were at that time a Negro girl in America, in Cleveland, Ohio, and we were this far from not losing the house probably every 6 months. So there wasn't a lot of money going around. So I had this foundation from my family, my maternal grandmother who taught me to pray, taught me the relationship with God, and not with religion, but with God. So I had this great foundation. So I grew up and I knew I could be all these things nobody else could be. I knew I could do that. I could be the technical director of the CBS Evening News and be the first Black woman to do it. There was only other woman before me, and she was right before me, Kathy O'Hearn. And she was there a matter of months until she moved on to ABC. And then I came in and I was there for several years. So I was the technical director of the CBS Evening News and Face the Nation, which means that about 200 men reported to me. Not all of them were very happy to see me there. When I went to NBC, I was the first five women to be hired at NBC as a technician. And we weren't always welcome there. But I didn't allow that to determine my attitude or what I wanted. I sort of assumed racism is racism, but I could be bigger than that, quite possibly. At least I was going to try. I went on to the women at CBS told me that I was too smart to be a technician because I kept fussing at them about the stories they were doing and how they were reporting them and how this was this or this or that. So they introduced me to the news director at Channel 9 here in Washington, which is a CBS affiliate, where I became a writer and on-air talent. I went on to produce for NPR, PBS, and C-SPAN. And I loved being a senior producer, but I grew weary of it because the hours are grueling. And my daughter I got married, got divorced, and had a 12-year-old. And I didn't want her to be a latchkey kid. So I stopped working for the networks and I went to work for Harry Belafonte. Worked for him and Danny Glover for a decade doing their communications work around their human rights work. My daughter and I got to see the world. So when I traveled, I would just lug her along. School systems were not friendly to us about that, but she got to hang out and be the assistant to Mr. Belafonte in England. And we got to go to South America several times and throughout Europe and South Africa and other places in Africa. And it was glorious for both of us. She's a phenomenal, now 32-year-old woman. And so, but I was telling you, so now I run this company. I love my company. I do this executive leadership coaching for Black women, and not because I went out and said, I'm going to do this with Black women. God kept sending me Black women. And no matter what my LinkedIn advertising did or whatever outreach I would do in my marketing, I always got Black women. So eventually, about a year ago, I decided to surrender to this. This is my niche, not determined by me, but I love it. And I work with some of the most phenomenal women who were vice presidents at Microsoft and Lockheed Martin and universities and presidents of universities. And they're phenomenal women. And we all have the same problem. We all have the same problem coming through this process, and that's our inner critic. That voice that starts somewhere between the age of 7 and 8 and 14, where something reminds you of what you're not. There are no 2-year-olds with an inner critic. A 2-year-old, my grandson, who, oh my God, the whole world belongs to him. It's all happy until somebody takes something away from him, and then it's all tragic for like 3 minutes. And then he's back to being happy, limitless. But somewhere in our middle childhood, around 8 up to about 14, something happens. Maybe your grandmother said, don't be too big for your britches. Or maybe you weren't popular in school. Or maybe you were overweight. Or maybe you were too thin. Maybe you were too tall like me. I'm this far from 6 feet. And so I was always teased about that. And those things cause body image problems and self-esteem issues. And your inner critic is always telling you what you can't be, what you can't be, what you can't be, what you're not worthy of. And all of us travel through our lives fighting off this inner critic that makes these fake upper limits for you. Like, you got that job. Well, that's good enough. You can't go for the next job. or you got this great job, but you'll never be an entrepreneur. So every step of the way, I had to battle my inner critic. I had to do it till I found with somebody who helped me build a toolkit to actually do it, to be comfortable in my skin doing these things. And while I'm branching out and getting bigger, and my upper limits now are way up there. And so I'm still trying to achieve them as opposed to bumping up against it and having my inner critic say, nope, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. So I work with women who are already in executive positions like I am, and walk them through the horrors of this inner critic, how to recognize when the inner critic is talking, and we build a toolkit that you pull out when she talks. And the toolkit is vast, but very specific to the inner critic. So I am really happy with the career I've been able to build and the life I've been able to build, and my grandmother teaching me the closeness to God and not religion, which was kind of interesting because she was quite the Baptist, but she taught me to explore and be a spiritual seeker. And I think it's in that growth I've been able to have a more powerful relationship with something greater than me, than my critic. And it took a while. And next week I celebrate a very important and big birthday. And I am very happy to be here. I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited about it. So I was told to talk for 10 minutes, and so I think I did. And I want to thank you all very much again for having me here. And if you have any questions or any challenges to what I had to say, I'm open to hear it.
Awesome, my friends. You know what, Joia, when we chose March 10th is her birthday, so we can all sing happy birthday to her in advance. But each one of you, please remember that March 10th, reach out to her. If you're not connected with her on LinkedIn, please follow her. She's an amazing. I mean, anybody has any questions, open your mic. Please, Mark, go ahead, please.
Joia, do you have any just immediate tips right now on how you can deal with that inner critic?
Well, the first tip I would give you is learn to recognize when it's talking. That is when you are not feeling empowered, when you are in doubt, when you are in fear, when you're hesitant, when you feel unworthy, when you don't feel empowered, your inner critic is talking. Because your adult self, the inner critic is always a wounded child and will always be a wounded child, always. And that wounded child is fearful of where you might take it. You know, children live in two places, of joy and death. No in between for children. You're either playing on the playground or there's a monster in the closet going to eat you. Children live in two places, which is where your inner critic lives. So happy with what you're doing, probably don't take that next step, or you're going to kill me. Something's going to happen, or we're going to be homeless. We're going to lose our wealth. We're going to be sick. You know, the monster's going to come get us. So whenever you're sitting around and you just feel like I'm never going to make it, I can't do that. That's too big. Nobody's urging you to go jump off the building and think you can. But short of that, you should be brave enough to take the next step, because you're old enough now to know you're not going to die. No matter what it is, you're not going to die. And so when you get to a point where you think this is all too big, it's the inner critic. What you do then is ask two very powerful questions. The inner critic is going to say something to you, and it's going to be yammering on about something, and you stop, you address the inner critic, and you say, is that true? And more than likely, the answer is no, that's not true. But then there's another question. If it is true, is that the only truth? Start there.
Thank you, Joia. I appreciate that.
Sure. Thank you for asking that question.
Oh my good. Joia, I'm taking notes. I know it's being recorded. but I still am taking notes because I like to put that as post for my kids and anybody else. Michael, Arlen, go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, I have a question. I was wondering, Joia, if you thought that maybe if we were to reimagine schooling for elementary and middle school, secondary school, I think it's called now, if that might be a way in which we can allow people to grow without being maybe compared as not being good enough, being below an average or something like that.
I think we should reimagine school, period. We should reimagine school. I think the Montessori program where kids aren't locked to a desk and they get to be creative and more accepted for who they are. I'm not saying we should do that one, but we should actually reimagine school. But the inner critic is a chemical piece of your brain no matter what happens to you in school. The inner critic will always find that thing, because a lot of my clients who can identify where their inner critic began, including myself, it was not at school. It was a family member, it was an uncle, it was a neighbor, okay? It was, I had an aunt who was very angry at the world and would say things to me that to diminish my dreams. My parents told me I was limitless, and she wanted to remind me, like I wanted to be on the Mickey Mouse Club. I wanted to be Annette Funicello. And my aunt told me, you can't be no Annette, you can't be on the Mickey Mouse Club. They don't let colored people on there. Well, I might have been 6. I hadn't noticed the delineation between white and Black people until then. She was the one that planted in my head that being Black or Negro was something less than. My father nearly killed her when I told him the story. He ran to her home, like she's like down there. He literally ran to her home with me in tow. What did you say? Don't you ever tell her what she can't be. So he was my guard, but it was still planted in my brain. So I hear what you're saying about reimagining schools. I think that that's important, period. I mean, from preschool through PhD, we have to reimagine how we educate ourselves, and how we grow as humans. We make it more holistic, but the inner critic's going to show up no matter what.
Wow. Wow, powerful, but we also know how to deal with the inner critic if we listen to you.
Well, what I said to you was one piece of dealing with it. It's a little more complicated than that, but yeah, that's one beginning piece. Yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful. Anybody? Dr.
Any
Joy?
other questions?
Yeah. Hi, Joy, thank you for paving the way. Really.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that phrase.
Thank you for paving the way. And so now the question to you is, things have changed drastically since you started in your, what would you tell future aspiring broadcasters now, and how to navigate the waters for themselves?
Find something else to do for a living.
Got it.
Because I think
that's honest. It's clear.
I did a TED Talk a few years ago called Reimagined Fourth Estate. Thomas Jefferson called the media, for him was only newspapers, the fourth estate. And they have a constitutional mandate. And 24-hour news has killed all of that. We have journalists now who have opinions. We have networks dedicated to one particular opinion. Walter Cronkite is rolling over in his grave. If you want to serve the community, you're really not going to serve it in broadcasting. You might serve it in print, but you're not going to serve it in broadcasting. It's not the same place. And I'm finding now a lot of people want to be in broadcasting because they want to be seen. I'm not finding young people who want to be producers or technicians like me. I wasn't an on-air talent. Occasionally I filled in for people, but I was not an on-air talent. And I was a writer. I was behind the scenes, and I can't meet a lot of people who want to be in broadcasting, who want to be behind the scenes. They all want to be anchor people or reporters because they want to be seen. And that's not journalism.
No.
That would be my answer.
Thank you. Well said.
Thank you. Thanks for asking that.
A very honest answer. and a very clear answer. I think, Dr.
Mhm.
Joy, thank you for asking. And yes, she paved the way, and we are grateful for women like her who are leaders, who we can really admire and follow. Anybody else? Welcome, Judy. Welcome back.
Thanks, Judy. You have to give me the co-host privileges.
Judy, it sounds like you have two microphones open.
What were you saying, Judy?
You need to.
Judy, you have two microphones open.
No, I don't.
Uh-oh.
Mm.
Okay, give me a second, Judy.
You can do announcements for Santa Fe Speedway.
How's this?
Yes, yay, better. You got it. You did it.
Okay, awesome.
Well,
Technology is so fun. So you have to give me co-host privileges so I can set up the rooms.
okay, my friend, give me a second.
I once again want to thank you all very much for having me as part of your community. Thank you
You're
so
welcome, and I know you have to
Joia.
leave because you're a busy woman. We hope our paths will cross intentionally soon again. And what a
Absolutely.
beautiful broad smile you have. Bye
Absolutely.
to you, and thank you for
Thank you
making
all.
our
Thank you
community
all.
really richer
Very much.
today. We appreciate it. Everybody,
Happy
give bye
birthday.
to Joia.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.